Got to strike the balance. All right, good evening. Today we're learning Maseches Kiddushin Daf Chaf Beis, and we're starting 3 lines into the wide lines on Chaf Aleph on the Beis. A lot of very interesting Gemaras. And Mirza Hashem, if we move at the right pace, we'll get 3 lines to the bottom of the page on Chaf Beis Mid Beis. Easier Gemaras, fascinating Gemaras about Eishes Yifas Toar, which we just had a couple of weeks ago in the Parsha. Says the Gemara Chaf Aleph on Beis 3 lines down. Rabbi Lazar Yudin Beribi Vayadorish Kishahein Rotzin Ein Rotzin El B'Milsa. Huh? That's where I started. That's what I just said. He's quoted previously in the Gemara. Yeah, that's okay. I don't understand. Yeah, he is quoted. You know, he's quoted 10 lines above. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're good. So he said, "Shehein rotzen, ein rotzen el b'milsa." The Tanakama was of the opinion that they only pierced the lobe. The Chachamim omer mein eved ivri kohen nirtza mibnei shenaseh balmum. And the Gemara says that by a kohen that you should not do it because it's a balmum. Earlier on the page we had a machlokas about what that meant. Did we say it's cartilage or not cartilage? So the Chachamim seem to hold that the piercing that was done for the nirtza was in the cartilage. Anyways, unrelated to that, the Gemara says v'yaseh balmum. Who cares? Pierce his ear. Who cares? He's a kohen. He's going to become an eved la'olam. What's the big deal? Amar Rabba bar Rav Shila Amar Kra the shavel mishpachto lemuchzak shebem mishpachto. He's going to go back to his family. He has to be in the same condition as in which he was given out. And here, if he comes back with a pierce in his cartilage, by the way, halacha l'maisa, is that the case? Let's say you have a kohen, a man who has a cartilage pierce. It's pasal kahuna. Based on the Gemara and the Chachamim, you're pasal kahuna. I don't know. I don't think it has any implications for a woman because she doesn't do avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. But l'chora for a man, if he does go the route of piercing his ears, we should always recommend, if you're going to do it, just do the earlobe. Don't go cartilage because you can pasal yourself. From fascinating din. Okay, let's continue. Ibaylahu, the question was raised. Eved Ivri Kohen, Mao Sheyimser Lo Rabo, Shivcha Kanainis. Is an Eved Ivri's master, so this guy is Jewish, is he allowed to give the Jewish Eved a Shivcha Kanainis? Do we say Chidushu Lo Shna Kohanav Lo Shnait Le Yisrael? Because it's a Chiddush, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a Kohen or not. The Torah was Mechadesh that a Shivcha Kanainis can be given to an Eved Ivri, so Kohen or not doesn't matter. O Dilma, or perhaps do we say Shiny Kohanim Hol V'riba Behena Kasuv Mitzvos Yiserus? Or perhaps we should say that when, as it relates to Kohanim, that the rules are different in general because they have a lot more rules. It's a little bit of a loosey-goosey type of approach. So what? More rules. That's what the Gemara says. We're 3/4 of the way down on Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. And on this, the Gemara answers with a machlokas, Rav Amar Mutter, that it's permissible for the Adon, for the master, for the Rabbo, to give a Shivcha Kanaanis to the Eved Ivri. Shmuel Amar Aser. Amar le Rav Nachman the Rav Anan. Rav Nachman says to Rav Anan, Ki havisu be Mar Shmuel, where you were in the base medrash of Mar Shmuel. Be'is kumadri itlalisu. Were you playing this game, which was according to Rashi, it was this game with like wood chips, some kind of game. Were you playing solitaire? Are you playing Minesweeper? Whatever our parallel would be in today's. You weren't paying attention. My time alotemu. Why didn't you push back on him and say that makes no sense? Shmuel says it's usher for them to have a shivcha kananis. Wait 1 second. We had said that an Eved Ivri can't get nirtza because it might make him a balmum. V'im tomar, but if Shmuel is right that he says ein rabo moser lo shivcha kananis, tepu klei, we should have said that ein Eved Ivri is because of the ahafti asaduni besishti vesbanai beleka. That really the only way he could be nirtza is if he has children. Well, that's a stira minei bay. You can't say on the one hand, Shmuel, that it's usher to give her a shivcha kananis, and then say that it's usher to pierce your ears because you're balmum. It's not usher because it's balmum. You're fundamentally not shaykh to being nirtza because you don't have children. You don't have a shivcha. So that why wouldn't you say that about Shmuel? It says the Gemara, sulo midi. This one, nothing else. It's a mic drop scenario. Conversation's over. No more conversation. We reject Shmuel outright. And halacha l'maisa, even though l'maisa we don't have this halacha right now, but halacha l'maisa in the world of Eved Ivri, what we would say is we paskin like Rav that a kohen who is an Eved Ivri can be given access to a shivcha kananis, and the Gemara continues. 15 lines from the bottom of the page in the thick of the wide lines with another shaila. Yibailu kohen ma'u b'yifas toar. We know the famed halacha of Eishes Yifas Torah. We're going to be learning a lot about this halacha tonight, this pasuk in Chumash. Very, very complex on its face. Very complex. Doesn't sound like a Yiddish mitzvah a little bit, but we're going to get into the belly of the beast here to try to understand more. Would this be allowed for a Kohen? Do we say on the one hand, Chidushu Loshna Kohen V'Loshna Yisrael? The Torah was Mechadesh Adin. If you're a Kohen, it doesn't matter. The Torah was Mechadesh. The Eishes Sifas Torah is mutter. You're allowed to be intimate with her. Do we say that perhaps because Kohanim are unique in how many halachos they have to keep in general, therefore maybe we should be makbid on them now, that a Kohen cannot have access to an Eishes Sifas Torah? Rav Amar Mutter, Shmuel Amar Aser. This is a machlokas Amoraim. Rav says that it's mutter for a Kohen to be with an Eishes Sifas Torah. Shmuel says it's Aser. Now we're going to see two versions about where this machlokas Rav and Shmuel may take place. Let's remember our machlokas. Can a Kohen sleep with and be intimate with the Eishes Sifas Torah? Rav says yes, Shmuel says no. Says the Gemara, version number 1, 10 lines from the bottom. B'bia Rishona, Dekule Amalo Pligi Deshari. Everyone agrees that when it comes to the first bia with this particular woman, that it's mutter. Even Shmuel would agree. The lo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzer hara. Oh, wow, such a lam d'shalain. I don't even know how to explain it other than the words on the page. The Torah knows the limits of our yetzer hara. And therefore, built into the structure of halacha, at certain times, you are allowed to be intimate with this non-Jewish woman who, as we will soon see, is a giores. When we're done learning about this. Kipligi, where do Rav and Shmuel argue? Only b'bia shnia. They only argue in regards to the second time that they're in. The first time, even Shmuel says it's mutter. The second time, that's where there's a machloket. Rav Amar mutter, Shmuel Amar aser. Why does Rav say mutter? Rav Amar mutter, holvi ishtari. Once it's permissible to sleep with her once, it's permissible to sleep with her again, right? Again, without any nida kshai. Let's just saying stam. To be intimate on a Monday night, followed by intimate, no problem at all. Ushmuel Amar aser. Why? Wow. Okay, now we're getting into a little bit more of what's going on here. Really, she's going to be a giores through this process that the Torah describes. All of the details, she's going to become a giores. So they can be intimate the first time, but by the end of the process, she's going to be a giores. Therefore, they cannot be together a second time. All of that is version 1 of the machlokas, where there's no isser at all of them being together the first time, but there's a machlokas about the second time. And here's the flipped version of that. Ika de Amre, 8 lines from the bottom. Everyone agrees, even Rav would agree, that it's usher for them to be together the second time. To have you look giores, because she's a giores, even Rav can't argue with that. And says Gemara kipligi b'bia rishona. Really, Rav and Shmuel argue about the first time they're together. Rav Amar mutter dohalo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzer hara. We know that this is the limit of the human condition, which is motivating because that means that nothing else is the limit of the human condition, right? We only have seen this type of kula built into the Chumash when you're at war in these very, very, very complex emotional scenarios. Fine. Under the circumstances when we say if this is a person who you can bring into your house, namely if it's someone you can marry, then karina then we apply the rules of if you see her and she is going to become a prisoner of war, then you can be with her. But because you're a Kohen, and because in due time this woman's going to be a Gioris and you're not allowed to marry her, therefore, very, again, it's a broader look at the Isser. We only say that you're allowed to be with this person if she's actually shaykh to you. But because she's going to be a Gioris and you're a Kohen, she's not shaykh to you. Machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Tana Rabbanan, let's learn Brisa specifically dealing with the mitzvah of Eishes Sifas Torah. Says the Gemara, Verisa Bashivya, B'shas Shivya. If you don't see her at the time of captivity, you only see her later, you cannot be intimate with her. Fascinating, right? We always thought carte blanche, no problem. No, you have to literally see her Verisa Bashivya as she's being held captive. Eishes, this is a chiddush. Even if she's married, remember she's a goy to start, so her marriage is halachically speaking. I mean, it's a something, I guess, but it's a nothing in halachic standards. Yifas Toar. Why is it that we are referring to her beauty? Because, as mentioned, and now for the third time, but really the first time that it's in context, at the bottom line of Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, Lo Dibra Torah El Keneged Yetzer Hara. And then the Gemara gives a mashal lemahadamer doven. Why is it that the Torah allows for us, for a person who's in war, to be intimate with this Eishes Sifas Torah? Says the Gemara the following mashal. Mutav sheyochlu Yisrael. It's better for a Jew to eat basar tmutos shchutos, animals that are already going to die, like a goses or a treifa that we know that they're going to die. It's better to eat them shchutos, ve'al yochal basar tmutos and nevelos, but it's better than to eat them unshechted. What does that mean? That means that the assumption is that they're going to sleep with her anyways, meaning that the Torah understands, the Kadosh Baruch Hu understands our human limit. And the human limit is in war, as they see her, whatever the specific parameters are around the Eshes Yifas Toar. And therefore, what we see on the top of Chav Beis Amud Aleph is this mashal that we would prefer to be in a scenario where his intimacy with her is less halachically problematic by allowing it straight out in Chumash. Again, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could ever create such a line, because if you'd ask even the most baseline balabas in learning, everyone would say you can't do that, right? There's no havamina that we should be able to do such a thing. Only the Torah can be mechadesh this din that it's allowed. Fascinating. The pasuk says v'chashakta, if you desire her, afal pi she'eina na, you desire her even though she's not beautiful, doesn't matter. V'chashakta still allows you to be with her. Ba, what does it mean her? Ba velo ba uvechaverta. You're not allowed to have two Eshes Yifas Toars, only one. It's not a game, right? These are rigid halachos as we have in every other area of halacha. If you see an Eshes Yifas Toar, you are granted the privilege of one maximum. That's it. You're capable of actually marrying her if you're not a Kohen, which is a non sequitur, really, because the previous sugya was talking about a Kohen. And then l'cha leisha, that's what the pasuk says. Shelo yikach shtei nashim achas lo v'achas l'aviv, achas lo v'achas l'bno. You also cannot, if there's two beautiful women, you can't take one for yourself and bring another one for a spouse, bring another one for your brother or for your father. You're not allowed. You are allowed to take that one woman and that's it. And the halach was applied very sharply. Vehevesa, and it says the Gemara, Malame shelo yilchasena b'milchama. You're not allowed to be with her during the actual war. You have to wait until another time. Rashi says, fourth line, Shelo Yilchatzena b'milchama, strange language of Yilchatzena. Usually with Shelo Tavola, Rashi says, Lavoala, that you're not allowed to be intimate with her at war. This isn't behema. I'm saying we're recognizing the Yetzer Hara, but there's a framework. It has to be that you were witness to her becoming a shivya. It has to be that it's only for you. It has to be that you're attracted to her. There are rules. There are rules and halachas. You cannot sleep with her in the field. That's not correct. That's not the way to do things. Very good. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan Chav Beis Amud Aleph, 6 lines down at the 2 dots. Imamor Yomar, we're going back to the discussions of Eved. Ad she Yomar v'yeshana. When a person says that they want to become an Eved la'olam, we need to see a double language. They have to say twice that they want to be this Eved. What if Amar b'tchilas sheish, v'lo Amar b'sof sheish? Let's say that they said in year 1 that they want to become an Eved nirtza, they want to do the full deal, but they didn't say it at the end, Eino nirtza, they're not going to be subject, they're not allowed to become an Eved nirtza. Shnemar lo eitzei chofshi ad sheyomer b'shas yitzia. The language of eitzei, the Gemara picks up on this and says that b'shas yitzia, not only should you say it in the beginning, you should also say it at the end. And what if Amar b'sof sheish, v'lo Amar b'tchilas sheish? What if you only said at the end, the Eved says by the end of year 6, right before Shkia Sacham, I want to become an Eved Nirtza. That was when he opened up his mouth, but he didn't say anything in the beginning. That also doesn't work. Eino Nirtza, Shne'emar, Imamor Yomar HaEved, Ad Sheyomar Kshu Eved. From the time that he started being an Eved, that is the time when he should have said. It's basically the halacha seems to be over here, that you have to say in the beginning of your Avdus and at the end of your Avdus that you want to become an Eved Le'olam, otherwise it doesn't work. Amar Mar, let's analyze this. We had said we're a quarter of the way down on Chav Beis Amud Aleph. He says, quoting the Gemara, Amar b'tchila sheish v'amar b'sof sheish. This was the second case we just quoted, that if you say in the beginning of your 6 years and you didn't say it at the end, einu nirtza shenamar lo etzei chavshi. Says the Gemara, my ear you may lo etzei chavshi. There should be another reason why we say you're not married. It seems to be over here that you don't have any children. Why does it say you don't have any children? Because when did he say it? Right when he started his Avdus. You can't possibly be married and have a kid that fast. I have a bris coming up. The math doesn't work, all right? They have not been married long enough for this baby to have been created the way that it was created. So here too, you can't walk into Avdus on day 1 and say, voila, I have a family. No. So by virtue of the fact that on day 1, you're supposed to say that there is no parameter of a hafti es adoni v'esishti v'espana. He doesn't have children yet. So v'leka. So why do we need the pasuk of lo etzei? And furthermore, in the case of Amar b'sof sheish v'lo Amar b'tchilas sheish, in the case where you said it in the beginning, at the end of the 6th year, not in the beginning, Einu nirtza. This is another case, right? This case is all talking about the 6th year. Before we were talking about year 1, year 6. Here we're talking about beginning of year 6 and end of year 6. There, einu nirtza shneimar ha'eved. Atu sof sheish lav evedu. At the end of the 6th year, isn't he also an eved? Why you just say it? They say it all at the right times. Omar Rava, this Gemara, you can see there's a lot of footnotes here. There's a lot going on. Says the Gemara, skipping all the parentheses, or Omar Rava betchilas pruta achrona. Besof pruta achrona. The right way to do this is to say it twice toward the end of your last avoda as an eved. Again, complicated. We would have to spend time here to figure out the parentheses.
The time span between tefillah and sof pruta can't be very large.
Yeah, or it just means it's at the end of the game. That's pretty much what it means. And Rava seems to say that you need to say it twice in that short span of time. So again, not simple, because how do you figure out all these Gemaras together? It requires Rishonim. Tanu Rabbanan, what are some case scenarios? As follows: Lo isha uvanim ulerabo ein isha uvanim. Let's say that the Eved has a wife and children, but the master doesn't have wife and children. Then guess what? Eino nirtza. And what's bias in Torah language? That's a wife. So therefore, if my master, I can go free in theory, but I'm sorry, I could become a nirtza by my own parameters, but I can't become a nirtza if my master doesn't have a family, because the pasuk says with the beisecha. What if the reverse? L'rabo isha uvanim. Let's say my master has wife and children, v'lo ein isha uvanim, and I don't. Eino nirtza shneimar ahavti esavdani es v'tishti v'esponai. It says I have to love my children and therefore want to stay with you. But that's not what it says over here. So therefore, they cannot do the nirtza status. Hu ohev es rabo v'rabo eino ohavo. Let's say I love my master, he doesn't love me. Eino nirtza shneimar kitov lo imach. Has to be good, and that's not good. What if rabo ohev v'hu eino ohev? Let's say my master likes me and I don't like him. Eino ohev es rabo, says Gemara. Eino nirtza. There too, he would not do nirtza. He would not get the poke in the ear. Shneimar ki ohevcha. There has to be love. Let's say that at the Eved is chola and the master is healthy. It's not good. When I work for you, I get sick, pollen in the ear, whatever the case may be. Not a good relationship. So what if, and we are 2/3 of the way down on Chav Beis Mad Aleph, what if what if the master is sick and the Eved is not sick? There too, you're not allowed to do a nirtza status, because we have to be the same. And then by Rabbi Bar Abaye, by extension, he asks the following question: what if both of them are sick? Because then we will see now that the psukim don't really have clarity. On the one hand, what do we say? I'm with you. We're both sick. We're on the same page. O Dilma, perhaps we say kitov lo imach, that it's good with you, but l'maisa I'm sick and therefore v'haleka. Take where the Gemara doesn't know the answer to that. But as we can see, the status of nirtza v'avado le'olam, when a person wants to claim that they want to be an eved forever, there's a lot of rules around that. I'm just saying for myself, as the average consumer of hearing laning, okay, I want to be an eved. No, there's so many rules. They have to have children. They got to be married. There's a lot going on here. The halachas of nirtza are not simple. And then we spoke about yesterday, how do you pierce the ear? Is it made only with metal, which was klalu pradu klal, or is it ribuye meute, which means anything that can pierce? So many details, myriad of details over here to make sure that this works out properly. Let's analyze still more. This brisa we saw earlier, Tanu Rabbanan. This was the psikta that we called out yesterday. Kitov lo imach. The pasuk says in regards to Eved that it's good to be with him. Imach b'maychal imach b'mishted. You have to eat the same foods. Shelo te'ata ochel pas nakiya v'hu ochel pas kiber. That you as the master are not allowed to eat refined flour when he's eating clunky, unclean flour. Thank God today in the stores we don't even have pas kiber. All of our flour is exceptional, just top shelf. When I lived in Eretz Yisrael, we had to sift. I don't know if that's still true, but our Rebbeim in Eretz Yisrael made us sift all of our flour whenever we used them, packaged or not, didn't matter. I think we did find bugs every once in a while, but really, miut, miut. Okay, not in America though. And then continuing in the brisa, 15 lines from the bottom of Tashosa Yain Yashin, V'Shosa Yain Chodash. You're not allowed to drink good wine if he's drinking new wine. Alta Yashin al Gabe Mochin, Hu Yashin al Gabe Tevin. You're sleeping on soft materials, he's sleeping on tevin, on straw. Sometimes when you bring something into your life that you think is going to help you, it ends up being that you it's a little bit cyclical in nature, and you end up becoming the eved to the eved. The brisa continues. Tanu Rabbanan v'yatzamei imachu v'anavimo, says the Gemara. Reb Shimon imhunim kar banav uvnosav minim kar. Just because he was sold doesn't mean the kids are sold. So says the Gemara, Mikan she'rabu chayvim mezonos banav. What this means is that we're obligated, the master is obligated to feed Let's say if I'm the Eved and I get sold, but my children stay there, so then the Rav has to feed them. Kayotze Badavar, very similarly, Atomer, in Bali Shahu V'yatzo Ishtoimo, let's say that the man gets sold, Amar Reb Shimon, Imhu Nimkar Ishto Minim Keresh, just because he gets sold doesn't mean she gets sold. Says the Gemara, same idea, Mikan Sharabu Cheves B'Mizonos Ishto, that if the wife stays behind as an Eved, as a Shifcha, that the master has to still pay her way and feed her. And why do we have two of these cases? It's the same exact person talking. We have Reb Shimon saying that in regards to the kids and in regards to the wife. Why do we have two cases teaching the same din, that if the man is sold, that the family still has to be supported? The Gemara says 5 lines before the end of the page on Chav Beis Manal V'Tzricha, we need both cases. Yashmin and Banav, if we only had the first case, where if I'm sold and my children are still in slavery, Shum Delo Bani Me'avadu Mechalnin, who my children they can't work, they can't lift anything, they're nothing, they're little kids. Avalishto the Bas Mechal Me'avadu, but she might be perfectly strong. She's a grown adult. She can handle that. Ema Tavid V'Tocha V'Techel. So then maybe she should be in that category. So therefore we need both cases. Yashmin and Ishto Delav Dircha Lahadure. Perhaps we should say that in regards to a woman, maybe we needed her case because it's not her path to go knock on doors. That's what Rashi says, the last Rashi on the page. It's uncomfortable for a woman to go do that. I've had mishulachim at my house who are women. Have you had? I've had a couple over the years. Some of them with tattoos crawling up the neck under their firm clothing. I don't know if it was balas tshuva or aligning with the needs of the constituencies, but I've had a couple over the years. We haven't shown it periodically also. See? Says the Gemara, that's not the way of a woman in general. That's posha for her. So maybe we needed that case of aban of the tirchayu lahadure, when little kids will knock on any door. Ding dong ditch. Anybody? Yeah. Right. So people knock on doors all the time. Little kids have no shame whatsoever. Maybe they lack shame. That's a bit of a problem. So therefore, tzricha, we needed both cases to teach us that in any case where either the father or the husband respectively were sold, then those who remain in servitude must be funded and supported with mizonos by the master. Tanu Rabbanan, turning to the top of Chav Beis Amud Beis. All right, we're doing great. We're gonna make it. Yeah. Ilu Nemar had the pasuk says Ozno Badelas Haisi Omer Yidkor Keneged Ozno Badelas. The pasuk only said Ozno Badelas with his ear on the door. I might have actually thought that you pierced the door next to his ear. Delas in Ozno Lo. I might have thought Havamina had the pasuk been written that way, that I just put the person next to the door and I poke a hole in the door, not in his ear. How can you say that? The pasuk says black on white that you need to poke his ear. Ella, you're right. I might have thought that you're allowed to pierce the ear away from a door, and then afterwards, put it next to the door. Little hard to understand this. Does it mean that if I poke someone in the lobe away from the door, then I bring them to the door and I put the hole in the ear against the hole in the wall in the door? Okay, Talmud Lomar be'ozno uvadelas. Okay, how does this work? Doker v'holechachma that you can't just poke a hole in the ear. You also have to go into the door a little bit, and you have to actually, it's not just a poke to get through. You're not just using the door as a backstop. You have to actually go drill into the. Sounds terrible. You have to actually get into the door. Delas, it says the Gemara 6-7 lines down. Shomeani bein akura bein she'ein akura. Maybe I can just go to Lowe's, find a door that's kind of lying on the floor, and say, "Hey, lie down." Maybe I can do that. Talmud Lomar mezuzah, it has to be similar to the word mezuzah. Ma mezuzah me'umad avdelas nami mum. The doors have to be standing. Okay, that's an important din. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai hadorish as a mikra zeh kimin chomer. He used to learn this pasuk kimin chomer. The word chomer has 1,000 definitions in Shas. Let's use Rashi. Rashi 8 lines down to Maseches chomer. Tzuror, a little compartment hamargalios for pearls. The tzuror habosem talui b'tzavar l'tachshit. It's worn around your neck for some type of jewelry. Namely, this is a little bit of a homily. The Gemara is just saying that he had this beautiful explanation. Mani shtana ozen mikol ivarim shebeguf. What is unique about the ear, which is different than all of the other limbs in the body? 2 lines before the wide lines, 10 lines down. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu. Ozen sheshama koli al Har Sinai. The ear that heard my voice at Har Sinai b'shah she'amarti, when I told the Jews, ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, v'lo avadim la'avadim. You're not supposed to become an eved to somebody else. But halach zeh, this guy, he lost his way. V'kana adon la'atzma, that guy yiratzad. It's a slap on the wrist. You did something wrong. Your ears heard Har Sinai. That's why you get the ritzia by the ear, because you did something wrong. Reb Shimon beRebbi, he also had a beautiful, again using the poetic language here, had a beautiful explanation. Forget about the ear. Why did we use the door? Why did we use the mezuzah? So Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu Kavyachal Kodesh Baruch Hu says 3 lines into the Y lines, third of the way down. The doorway and the door jamb, which were witness in Mitzrayim to that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu passed over the Jews, and they were saved. Ve'amarti, and then I said, Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim, that the Jews are my avadim. V'lo avadim la'avadim, where were you? How did you miss the cue? You should not become an eved to an eved. That has to be on the door, dafka. Beautiful, just beautiful. It's like kaftar v'ferach. Everything ties up beautifully that you've made an error. And what that means is that even though it's true that it might be mutter, maybe it's mutter for you to become an eved nirtza, maybe, but you're a shtickle shegitz that you did it. You made yourself an eved to another person. That's not the derech. That's not the right way to do things. Brings us to a new Mishnah, heading to the bottom of the page. We've been talking about Eved Ivri. Let's switch over Eved Kanani. Remember our last Mishnah, we were talking about how does an Eved Ivri become an Eved. You got a couple things to become an Eved, a few things to get out of being an Eved. Let's talk about an Eved Kanani. This guy's mostly a goy. Nikna bekesef uvishtar v'chazaka. He is able to become an Eved Kanani with money, with a document, and through chazaka. Well, how does he become free again? This is a machlokes tanoim. Bekesef al yadei acherim. First is through kesef that comes from other people, meaning I could have somebody else. If I was the goy and I was the Eved, someone else can bail me out. But if it was my own money, it wouldn't work because I'm a goy Eved, so everything that I own goes straight to my master. And I can write my own shtar. Reb Meir, that's his opinion. No, they flip the shitas that the kesef can be even mine if I'm the Eved, I'm from the Eved Kanani, and the shtar can only come from others. But the money does have to come from somebody else. Cryptic, of course. We will see, not today, but we will see later in the Gemara what all of this means. Minalan, how do we know that an Eved Kanani is nikne bekesef uvishtar v'chazaka? The first line of the Mishnah says the Gemara. The pasuk says you'll inherit them for your children after you for your inheritance. There's a comparison between Eved Kanani and steachuza. Mas steachuza nikne bekesef v'shtar v'chazaka. Just like a steachuza, which we spent probably too much time talking about over the last couple of days, is nikna with these 3 things. Af Eved Kanani, Eved Kanani, he too, nikna bekesef v'shtar v'chazaka. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. You can't compare these 2 things. You can't make a kal v'chomer between steachuza and an Eved Kanani. Ima steachuza chozers l'baylam b'yovel. A steachuza goes back by yovel. Af Eved Kanani chozer l'baylam b'yovel. Would you say that an Eved Kanani goes back by yovel? That's not the din by an Eved Kanani. It's the din by an Eved Ivri, but not by an Eved Kanani. Talmud Lomar says the Gemara lo'olam behem ta'avodu, that they are. That's why we have the pasuk to teach us of that they're going to service you forever. Tana, we have a brisa that says halfway down on Chav Beis and Beis, the brisa says af bechalipin, big chiddush. You can be kone an Eved Kanani bechalipin. We spoke about this already in other frames. That kinyan chalipin is sometimes what we see at weddings. We see them by Tanaim, we see them by the ksuba itself. The husband picks up the pen and says, I mask him to everything that's inside the ksuba. The Eidim witness that, and then they sign. The Tana Didan, why didn't our Mishnah mention chalipin? Says the Gemara, our Mishnah is different. Our Mishnah left out chalipin and only said that the Eved Kanani is nikna bekesef v'shtar b'chazaka because halfway down, milsa deleisa b'metaltal and ktani. Our Mishnah is only talking about things that don't apply to metaltal, and milsa deisa b'metaltal and lo ktani, but things that do work on in regards to metaltal and were not listed. So that's why chalipin was left out. So says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Eved Kanani nikne b'meshicha. Did you know you could actually do meshicha and pull an Eved Kanani? So, it doesn't look normal, but you can pull an Eved Kanani to make it work. Says the Gemara, Ketzad, takvo v'etz lo kno. If I grab him by the collar and I pull him towards me, and he walks towards me by me grabbing him, kinyan, that's a kinyan mashicha. However, says the Gemara, karovo, so if I call him and say, hey, you, I just bought you, come over here, and he walks, lo kano. Fascinating. Says the Gemara, bishlam alatana didon. I understand according to our Mishnah that the reason why mashicha was not listed in our Mishnah is because milsa de isa b'metaltale lo ktani. Things that apply to metaltalin are not listed. That which doesn't apply to metaltalin, ktani, and mashicha only in a specific set of circumstances. Ella letana bira, the tana literally on the outside, namely the tana of the brisa that we just learned. Nisni mashicha. He should, the one who says the one about chalipin, he should also say mashicha. So says the Gemara, 2/3 of the way down. Kiktani milsa the ise bein bemekarkoi bein bemetaltale. That Mishnah is only talking about things that apply to land and to metaltalim. Meshicha, which only applies to bimetaltale ika, but bimekarkoi lesa loktani, that's left out. So we had said earlier, Ketzad, how does the Mashiach work? We had said takvo voetz lo kinao. We had said that if I grab this non-Jew by the collar and we're making an Eved Kanani transaction, that works kinao. And then we had argued that perhaps if I only called his name, X person X, come here, kirao voetz lo kinao. So it says the Gemara, that's not true. The karulo, if I call his name and he walks to me, that's not considered a kinyan. V'tanya, we have a brisa that says the exact opposite, that when I do call him, it is a kinyan. Where do we see this? V'tanya, Ketzad b'mesira, not really related sugya for us, but how do we hand over an animal? So it says the Gemara, achsa b'talfa, if you grab an animal by its hoof, b'sara by its hair, b'uka by its saddle shella, b'shlif shella, that thing that rests on the saddle, b'prumbia shebefia, the bar that's in his mouth, b'zug shebet the bell that's around its neck, that is a good kinyan by the animal. Says the Gemara, Ketzad b'mashicha. How does the mashicha work by this animal? What do you do? And look what the example is of mashicha. Kore la v'hiba, you call it and it comes to you. Or if you smack it with an animal and it walks in, smack it with a stick and it walks in your direction. Once one foreleg and one back leg uproots, meaning they take one step because they do right front. How does it work? Right front, back right, and then left front. That's how they walk. That's how horses walk, right? That's how they walk. So once a 1 foot and one leg pick up, and Allah is it. What? I just drove a horse. I just rode a horse 2 weeks ago in Pearlstein. I'm like trying to remember that. I'm not an expert. Where's my dad? Where is he?
There you go.
Got to get it back here. Shav Brachas in New York. So the Gemara says that by an animal, all of this does work. Kina'ah. And Rabbi Asi, I should say, he has to walk at its full height. Either way, what we see in this brisa is that by an animal, you can call an animal to come. And if it comes, it works. Yet we said by Nevid Kanani that if you call the person and we say, please walk over to me, and he walks over you, it doesn't work. So why is it that we say that that's true? It should be that we follow the rules by the animal where it does work. Says the Gemara, an obvious answer. Amre, 15 lines, 12 lines from the bottom. Eved, skipped a line. Amre behema, adai to demara azla. Animals don't have das. So when the Baal says something to the animal, it makes that sound, and then the animal walks to you, you're done. That's a kinyan, no problem at all. But Eved adai to denafshikazil. The guy he has his own brain. He can make a decision. I want to walk over there, so I'm going to walk over there. That's not me going on your das. That's me going on my das. It doesn't work. And Amar Rav Ashi, Eved katan kibehemodami. If you're buying a child who's an Eved Kanani, and you say, come here, because the child has no das, so he's like a behema, and that it's like das bailam. I'm going to go home with this one tonight. The Gemara perfectly equates you to a cow. Why? Because your das is meaningless. When you're an Eved Kanani Katan, you're kibehema in regards to your das, it's das bailim. And if I ask your father to walk to me, it's a 0. If I ask you walk to me, it's a kinyan. That's Mashiach. Fascinating. Tanu Rabbanon, Ketzad b'chazaka. Our Mishnah had opened, we're 12 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah had opened that an Eved Kanani is nicknamed b'kasef hu v'shtar b'chazaka. What's b'chazaka? So it says the Gemara, Hitir lo min alo, unties his shoe, o holich kelav acharav l'beis hamerchatz, he carries his clothes to the bathhouse, Yivshito, he undresses him, Yirchitzo, he washes him, Sachu, he soaps him up, Gardo, he exfoliates, scratches him like a raid. It's to kind of clean his skin. He'll bisho, gets him dressed, he'll put his shoes on, he picks him up, kino. Reb Shimon, lo tehei chazaka gdola me'agba. Picking someone up is the best form of kinyan. Shehagba koneh b'chol makom. Anytime you pick anyone up in the form of a kinyan, it always works. It says, Gemara, my kamar, what is he trying to teach us? Amar Rav Ashi, higbio hu lerabo kinao. If he is picked up, higbio hu. If he picks up his master, kino. He bio rabo lo. If his master picks him up, lo kino. And number of Shimon on this, lo techazak hakdol me'agba she'agba konu b'chol makom. No, it always works. And says the Gemara, fascinating halachic shiloh. Hasha de amris. Now that you've said higbiyahu l'rabo kinao, that if somebody picks somebody up, then it works. And lamayata shivcha kenanis tikne bibia. That if a man is intimate with a shivcha kenanis, listen to the lamdus, because hu lemala v'hi lamata during tashma shamita, if his weight is on top of her, then she's carrying him, and that should be considered a chazaka. And we should say tikne bibia. Brilliant. Says the Gemara, Ki karmin and zenene v'zemitzdayer. But hacha zenene v'zenenehu. No, you can't say that over here. When do we say that the kinyan of chazaka works b'hagba? When does that work? That only works when it's zenene v'zemitzdayer. But by tashma shamita, it's zenene v'zenene, and therefore it doesn't work. The rules of hagba only work when it's zenene v'zemitzdayer. I didn't know that. I would never have thought that. Maybe it's only true over here. I don't know, but it sounds like a chiddush. Says the Gemara, fine. Shelo kedarka Michael Meimar. Let's say the tashma shamita was not done in a way where she was holding his weight. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Achai bar Ada demin Acha man leimalan delav hana islahu letarvayu.
The question was Zen.
That is
More supposition was having to do with weight, but Shelo kedarka, she's not that.
that is true.
And then we want to answer
That is true from the answer. That is true from the answer. But I thought the question was, oh, yeah. No, it's still, no?
You're talking about who's being obedient.
Yeah, who's holding the weight? My Kamar? No. No, it's not referenced in the Rishonim. Yeah. You're definitely correct, David, based on the answer. But I just have I just don't understand technically what's happening in the Gemara. That's why my brain went there. But you're totally correct. Shelo kedarka ma'ikla meimar, shelo kedarka, where it's zenene, v'zelo nehene, v'zemitztayer potentially. So then maybe we should say that would work, that would be a proper kinyan, assuming that it's weight bearing. That has to be the assumption of the Gemara. It says the Gemara, Amar Rav Achai bar Ada demin Acha. No, man leimalan delav hana islu tarvayu. Perhaps it is something that is zenene still. And furthermore, Mishkeve Isha Ksiv, Mishkeve, we've seen this drasha many times in Shas, where both Tashmish Kedarka and Shelo Kedarka are equated to one another. Kisha Kasub Kedarka, Shelo Kedarka. This is a very difficult answer,
right?
Because nothing to do with Bia. The Gemara is giving it. The Hagba should only work if it's Zen and if it's Emitztayer. Very difficult to answer, but that's what the Gemara says. All right, we made it. We're going to stop right here. Mir Hashem, tomorrow night we'll pick up 3 lines from the bottom. Wishing you all a beautiful night.